Second Chronicles chapter 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoaddan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father the king. Yet he did not put their children to death, but acted in accordance with what was written in the law in the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, "Parents shall not be put to death for their children, nor children be put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin." Amaziah called the people of Judah together and assigned them according to their families to commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Judah and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20 years old or more and found that there were 300,000 men fit for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of God came to him and said, "Your Majesty, these troops from Israel must not march with you. For the Lord is not with Israel, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, God will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or to overthrow." Amaziah asked the man of God, "But what about the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops?" The man of God replied, "The Lord can give you much more than that." So Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Judah and left for home in a great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the Valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Judah also captured 10,000 men alive, took them to the top of a cliff, and threw them down, so that all were dashed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops that Amaziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided towns belonging to Judah from Samaria to Beth Horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods of the people of Seir. He set them up as his own gods, bowed down to them, and burned sacrifices to them. The anger of the Lord burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, "Why do you consult this people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?" While he was speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that God is determined to destroy you because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Jehoash, son of Jehoaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. "Come, let us face each other in battle." But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon, 'Give your daughter to my son in marriage.' Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, and that of Judah also?" Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked that he might deliver them into the hands of Jehoash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Jehoash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Jehoash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 400 cubits long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, from the beginning to the end, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? From the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his ancestors in the city of Judah. I believe the reason why the Lord has directed me to this scripture or brought me to this scripture today is because one of the things that I've been taking up with him is all of the things that I have given up, all of the things that he told me to give up. And one of the things that he has me thinking about today is that you cannot serve both God and money. And for this reason, I offer many things to you for free, right? And I really don't have an income. This is not because I made this decision. This is because God brought me to this place, slowly stripping me, slowly convicting me of the things that I had done to build that empire that I built, and then telling me, this is not of me, this is not of me, that is not of me. And I was talking with a friend today on the phone about this concept of not serving both God and money, and how I, and probably many of you, have thought, well, we still have to make an income, so we convince ourselves that we're not serving both God and money. For example, when I began my practice, God allowed me to build my practice very quickly to a point that within the first year I had employees. I also had contracts with various skilled nursing facilities and board and cares. I developed contracts with different doctors and specialists, neurologists and psychiatrists, for example. And I continued to build and build. But I built to a point to where my bread and butter was paid by what my staff was doing, and I was able to do things for free. Some things I didn't do for free, but many things I did for free, such as speaking. I spoke all over the place for free. And I believed in what I was speaking and what I was doing was helpful and that it was good. And so it freed me up. Building my business that way freed me up, because prior to having gone into the field, my situation was a little unique from many of my colleagues who were very focused on just building a career. And eventually I'm going to get paid for this, right? So that's the mentality when you're going to school. My situation was different because I had come from 12 steps. And though I do not endorse or believe in 12 steps anymore, I believe that it is satanic new age garbage. There's something that I was taught in 12 steps, which was that you give of yourself for fun and for free through sponsorship, through service. And I believe that's a good thing, although I think that they take it to the extreme, in many cases where people are giving more to 12 steps than they are to their own household. That part I do not believe is okay. Nevertheless, this was the heart. This was the mentality that I was coming with, was that I had been sponsoring, I had been in service for fun and for free. And so when I started my career and I began getting paid and this became my livelihood, it diluted the passion for me. Not only did it dilute the passion, but it also trumped the passion, because now I needed to pay back my loans. I needed to, move forward in life, pay my bills. I wanted more. I believed that I had worked hard and deserved more. You can't serve both God and money, because that's what ends up happening. And those justifications and rationalizations are sound in a way, right? If the world and your career in the world is what's paying your bills, that's what you're going to end up serving. There's no way, even with the heart that I had, there's no way that you are not going to be serving or attempting to serve both God and money, which God tells us you cannot do. We have to trust that God is the one who's going to pay our bills. And, it's a foolish thing of the world, isn't it? But anyone who claims to be serving God has to live in that way. They have to. Not because I say that they have to, because the word says that they have to. They cannot serve both God and money. And I know this from personal experience. I know that I built my career in such a way, and really God allowed me to build my career in such a way that I was able to give for fun and for free. But even though my employees were covering the bread and butter, and I had this luxury of being able to give, I still was concerned about financial things. I still was concerned about marketing, making the message accessible, doing these things that we as people of God have absolutely no business doing. Since God has had me doing this, He has not had me market. He has not had me strategize as a business. He has had me trusting Him every single day that He's going to pay the bills, even though I don't see where in the world He could possibly do that. And in the midst of that, giving up everything, giving away provision that I had, giving away cash that I had, giving away things that I could sell and make money on, slowly telling me, you cannot be connected with this system. You cannot be connected with that system. You need to give up these contracts. You need to give up those contracts. You need to give up this. Slowly stripping me of all of these things, testing my heart to see if I was going to serve him or if I was going to serve money. So I not only know this from the word, I know it from my testimony. I know it from what he has built in me and where he has brought me. I had an experience not that long ago with the last contract that I discontinued with a doctor who has a fairly lucrative practice and would send over patients to me for assessment. And those assessments were a very lucrative part of my practice. But I was told, because that person had referred someone who had questions about spirituality, who brought it up themselves to me. And I was told essentially to put a muzzle on it with his patients. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because he told me the reason why. Because the people who are funding that person's treatment are paying big money not to hear about Jesus. They don't want to hear about that stuff. So keep a muzzle on it. And so very shortly after that, I discontinued the contract and let them know, thank you for the years that we've been working together. However, this is no longer going to work for me. I am not going to compromise what God has me talking about. I am not going to compromise, dilute the truth, not make it accessible to someone who is asking for it for money. I know who I serve, and I know the joy that's set before me for making that decision. And I am not giving that up for nothing. And so with each thing that God has stripped from me, sure, I've asked the question, well, what about the, 100 talents of silver that I paid for that? What about my reputation? What about how hard I worked for those contracts? What about how hard I worked to be able to buy those shoes, that outfit, these things? The Lord can give me much more than that. And even if he doesn't give me much more here, he'll give me much more in the next age. And that's what I'm holding out for. That's what I'm invested in. He's capable of providing for me. But we don't see this faith. We don't see this attitude of the heart in counterfeit Christianity. What we see is fear. What we see is submission out of fear, submitting to the world out of fear. You saw it during COVID. You see it in what they do with regard to tithing, which has already been fulfilled through sacrifice. You see that that these people are not able to conceive of a God that is capable of providing. They claim that they believe in a God who made a name for himself, who went through Egypt and struck down the firstborn of every household, of every Egyptian household, but spared the Jewish people, spared the Israelites, spared his people. They claim to believe that God is able to turn the hearts of our enemies to where the Israelites were able to plunder the Egyptians before they left Egypt. They claim that they believe that God could separate the sea and deliver his people out of bondage, snuff out their enemies like a wick, feed them manna from heaven, water from a rock, quail, but he's not able to provide for them. They have to live as the world lives in order to be provided for in the world. I know that this is a very hard thing to do because I'm living it every single day, and I feel what it is that I am doing. It's scary. I have no idea what God is going to do to provide. And yet he has, and yet he gave me all that he gave me before. Even before I was in him, no one can have anything unless God gives it. So I'm holding out because if he tells me that I have to let go of those things, that they are not of him, he has a plan. So it's my job to continue to affirm that. Now there's something else that's said in this passage, and what was said from the very beginning is that Amaziah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. He obeyed the law that was written in the book of Moses. He obeyed that law, but he did not obey and serve God wholeheartedly. And because he didn't do that wholeheartedly, he didn't know who his God was, he didn't remind himself of who his God was, the name that he made for himself, the name that covered him, Amaziah was led astray. He started serving other gods. He brought the gods of Seir into his house and began to bow down to them. You understand that all of these ways of the world are gods. They're false gods. The ways that we think that we are providing somehow for ourselves and our families, if they are not of him, we are serving a false god. So I really want to encourage you to think about that and to pray about it and to understand who you're serving. Because at the end of this world, it isn't going to matter how much you made. Nothing's going to matter but whether you served him wholeheartedly. And if you do, you will be saved. That faith that you are declaring with your mouth has to be in your heart. And it has to be in your heart first. And it has to be in your whole heart. We have to serve him wholeheartedly. He's able to protect us. He's able to provide for us. He's able to give us anything we need in the name. And he will give good gifts to his children. And he knows that we need clothes, a house, food. And if he's given us children to take care of, a blessing, he's going to give us a way to take care of them. So please consider today whether you are serving him wholeheartedly, whether you have returned to him wholeheartedly, and what you're struggling with. If he's convicting you of something that you need to let go of, that you need to be stripped of, are you having reservations? Why are you having those reservations? Are you able to remind yourself of who God has been in your own life and who he's been throughout the word? And do you believe it? Do you believe in that name? Thank you for listening. God bless you. And I'll see you in the next video.